Welcome to the Project Censored show on Pacifica Radio. I'm your host, Mickey Huff. Today on the program, we revisit the issue of banned and challenged books around the United States. Of course, our listeners know that Project Censored is a longtime part of the Banned Books Week Coalition and also the National Coalition Against Censorship. We do an annual show around Banned Books Week every year. And the past couple years, we've unfortunately had far too much to talk about because book bans, book challenges, curricular challenges across the U.S. have spiked. They have increased an extraordinary amount. In fact, if you look at PEN America, you'll see that even just during the first half of the 22-23 school year, there were nearly 1,500 instances of individual books banned, affecting over 870 unique titles, which was an increase of nearly 30% compared to the prior 6 months. Of course, we've also seen massive changes in state legislatures from Texas, Florida, Missouri, Utah, South Carolina, Oklahoma, other places, and even here in California. There have not been legislative attempts, of course, to ban books, but there have been local attempts to do so. Well, right now, we're going to be turning our attention to one of these other states that's really been on a roll as far as censorship and book banning happen to go, and that is Texas, Austin, Texas, the capital. And today on the program, we are honored to have returning to the show, Cameron Samuels, them, a co-founder of Students Engaged in Advancing Texas, or SEAT. Cameron spoke with us on the Project Censored show last September. Cameron was the Youth Honorary Chair of Banned Books Week this past year, and Cameron distributed banned books and organized students to pack school board meetings in their hometown of Katy, Texas. Now they're organizing in the Texas legislature against academic censorship legislation. Cameron Samuels, welcome back to the Project Censored show.
It's great to be back, but unfortunately, under these circumstances, it certainly is necessary to be back speaking above the floodline of censorship.
Absolutely, and it's an honor to have you back on. I want to also introduce your colleagues, your peers that are joining you here today. And of course, I want our listeners to know that I'm speaking with our guests on Monday, May 22nd. This is pre-recorded, and these folks are actually waiting for the Texas legislature to come out of recess to address the very issues that we're talking about today. So please stay tuned to the projectcensored.org website. We'll have updates here, and throughout our conversation today, Cameron and our guests will be giving places where you can follow their work. We're also joined by Hayden Cohen, them, an organizer with SEAT. Most of their previous experience is with campaigns of local elections, LGBT QIA plus students' rights, including speaking in front of school boards, testifying at the state capitol, and organized educational programming. In the meantime, Hayden is a college student in Houston, Texas, studying social work. Hayden, welcome to the Project Censored show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
And also Angel Huang, her, is a sophomore at the University of Texas, Austin. Angel is a sociology major and aspires to attend law school to become a civil rights lawyer. And Angel, you're sitting in the seat of power there in Texas, quite literally, seeing how that works. Welcome to the program today, Angel. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start with you, Cameron, just very quickly, because I know we want to get into what's happening there today in Texas and want to get our listeners updated on this and be able to follow the important work that you're all doing. Even though Banned Books Week is not until the first week of October, we're here at it and have been in the trenches just since last fall, and we've seen an extraordinary uptick. I have actually done 2 other shows and several talks across the country about banned books because this is an extraordinary phenomenon that we're seeing. We're seeing a massive escalation of attempts to ban books, to censor material, and to really suppress the kind of things that teachers are allowed to teach, particularly in K-12 classrooms, but also in some states, they're going after the colleges. So Cameron Samuels, take a minute, remind our listeners about some of your extraordinary work from your hometown and becoming the honorary youth chair for Banned Books Week, and then we'll get some updates. Cameron.
Honestly, Banned Books Week should be every week because of what we have been seeing in this past year. It's
Absolutely.
so unfortunate that, in my hometown of Katy, the school board elections have only intensified this issue. The community is now giving more into this fear mongering. We're seeing this issue prolonged. More books are being removed from shelves. It hasn't really slowed down, but has remained pretty steady, where the students are continuing to speak at school board meetings. That, fortunately, has become a new norm. We have revolutionized our district where students are now empowered to speak at board meetings. But are their voices really being heard? I don't think they really are by the decision makers. The school board members in my district who had been opposed to our cause as students when we distributed books, hundreds of banned books at after-school clubs, the student leaders in our district that came together for these book distributions, we showed power. We demonstrated our voice and our power by packing school board meetings. And they responded by reviewing and challenging the books that we distributed. So we were not even safe in that sense of protecting books when the books that we were trying to distribute and defend were now becoming more under attack.
So Cameron, you had, would you say that you had a successful attempt at bringing awareness around this issue in your hometown? This is, of course, the reason that I ended up meeting you through Banned Books Week was because you had done such extraordinary work on the local level.
We've absolutely brought awareness and we brought action. Communities like Katy and across Texas and across the country, these issues are happening across the board and our organizing is replicable. And we have been organizing across the country. We certainly have brought this about. But when there are school board members, school districts, when their state legislatures are continuing to push this fear, push this policy of harming students by denying us the right to read and having equal representation in a diverse school library, when this still happens and it's continuing, then, however loud our voices are, sometimes the policy may just be in some ways. And that's why we can't just be silent. We did make huge successful waves, but it's going to require building these close relationships with decision makers, persisting to communicate with them, to leverage that power, and to continue on the front lines. We can't be silent, and we need more people involved.
Yeah, and Cameron Samuels, you mentioned then the idea of the going to school boards. At one point, you were a kind of a lone voice at your own school board meeting until other people started to say, hey, especially, again, fellow young people who don't want to be dictated to, don't want to have stories restricted that may enrich their lives or tell their similar stories, right? And what we've seen across the country is that school board elections have become kind of a battleground. Even here in Northern California, there's loads of money that comes in from conservative organizations out of the state to prop up candidates for school boards that generally run on parental rights or some other kind of vague platforms. But they're Trojan horses in many cases for book bans, for censoring books, for restricting access to books, and for potentially suppressing certain types of curricula. And very quickly, get back to Pen America's site, there's a type of book that's more likely to be banned, right? 44% of them are that have something about violence or physical abuse in them. 38% cover topics of health and well-being for students. 30% include instances or themes of grief or death, all very important parts of life for young people or anybody. 30% include characters of color that discuss racism. Almost as many are about LGBTQ plus characters or themes, right? so it's not just sort of anything that's on the table. There's a politically driven sort of agenda here about the kind of books that these folks are going after. So Hayden Cohen, let's bring you, and let's also bring Angel Huang into the conversation. What exactly are you all doing around the issue with this organization's seat, and what are some things that you're seeing happening today? Hayden?
So C is we're kind of trying to become the vehicle to help students just become involved in the political environment, because it's oftentimes very difficult for youth to have voices, yet alone be taken seriously. So we're trying to ensure that we provide and help educate them on what's actually happening, like the process. The legislative session in Texas is very confusing to understand. And we even learn ourselves, and we'll ask each other questions. So we're trying to help educate youth about that, and then at points where they can get involved. So one of the biggest things we do is like help kids get to testify, as well as meet with legislators one-on-one, whether that be Zoom or in person, and that significantly helps. And so that's kind of what we've been doing since the legislative session starts. After the legislative session finishes, assuming we don't have a special session, we'll likely focus more on local government, so local school boards and city councils.
Right, and you definitely have your hands full there in Texas. One of the bills that you're all grappling with right now is, I believe, HB 900. Do any of you want to address that, or Angel, is that something that you can address?
Yeah, for sure. So
Mhm.
currently we're here today to hear the Senate hearing for HB 900. There's a lot to say about it for sure. I think this is a very harmful bill, of course. And like, we've talked to a lot of legislators, and unfortunately, a lot of these conversations regarding it has sounded very negative in terms of where it's heading, because I think there's a lot of support within the Senate regarding this bill. And although us as students, the people who are actually being impacted by this bill, who are literally here right now telling them, hey, we don't want this, there are senators who are listening to us, but there's a lot of other senators who are not listening to us and are not doing this on our behalf. We are here to tell them, hey, we don't want this. And we have worked on amendments. We have literally written out amendments to lessen the harm of this bill, because we're fearing for the fact that it will pass. And this bill will be detrimental to the access of education we will be getting. And I want to expand on how in terms of that, we've worked on also expanding curriculum because of the fact that we know that a lot of these bills will be passing. We are aiming to also look into a lot of the bills that were expanding curriculum. Unfortunately, a lot of them will not be able to pass. So we are looking into working on them later on through other means. But for now, we're here to just talk to the legislator. Hopefully they will be listening to us and hear that we're still watching them. We're here to tell them no.
Well, thank you so much for being so civically engaged around such a paramount issue. First Amendment issue, the right to expression, the right to speech, the right to know, and academic freedom, right? This is a very, very important issue, and it's so important for young people to be engaged in it, literally on the front lines. And so I appreciate it as an educator and as someone that is very involved in these issues. I can't thank you all enough for really doing the work and seeing how things go on and seeing how difficult it is to get these things happening. And I know, Hayden, you wanted to talk a little bit more about what the bill in consideration is designed to do. You want to go ahead and talk about that?
Sure. So oftentimes when we think about book bans and challenges, we think that they're trying to ban specific books, and sometimes they are. Not this bill though. It's a little bit weird in the sense that it doesn't mention any specific books. What it says is that it requires book vendors, so we're talking stores, online stores, physical bookstores, Amazon even, to rate every single book that they've got that is selling to schools as either sexually explicit, sexually relevant, or not. And they've formed this weird rating system with some very vague language in it too. And then essentially what they've said to the vendors is, hey, if you incorrectly mislabel a book because maybe Amazon hasn't read every single book that they sell, then no school district can buy from you until you've gone through this appeals process. Can buy any book from you. And so that significantly harms the vendors, but especially the librarians who very purposely choose what books they want to purchase and have this whole authorization process that sometimes is about a month, sometimes it's close to a year to actually authorize the purchase of a school book for their students. Like, this is not a simple process. And this bill essentially says to them, hey, librarians, all that education, your master's degree, means nothing because we think we know better than you. And so it will significantly affect the books that schools can have. And then it places the onus on the vendors. There are a few other parts of the bill. It's a very, very long bill, including saying that parents are the primary decision makers. And coming as a C organizer, we really didn't like that because we recognize that students are actually the ones affected by this one.
Well, it's, Hayden, thank you so much for bringing that up. We're going to revisit some of that. You're going to have a chance to talk more about the specifics that are going on. And Cameron, I know you want to jump back in, and Angel, I know you'll have more to say. I just want to remind everybody that you are tuned to the Project Censored show. We're talking about banned books once again here on the show. We are joined by Cameron Samuels, Hayden Cohen, and Angel Huang. They are part of an organization called SEAT, Students Engaged in Advancing Texas. And they actually are in Texas at the state capitol now as I'm speaking with them. This is a pre-recorded show. It's on, this is Monday, May 22nd. There will be updates and news once this show airs. And again, we will certainly be coming back to talk more about it. That said, we're going to go take a quick musical break, and we're going to come back with our members of SEAT, and we're going to get more specifics about what's happening in Texas and what you can do to get involved in fighting against censorship and book bans in your own communities when these challenges arise. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Project Censored show on Pacifica Radio. I'm your host, Mickey Huff. Today on the program, we're addressing banned books once again. We are joined by Cameron Samuels, who is a co-founder of Students Engaged in Advancing Texas, or SEAT. Cameron is also the Youth Honorary Chair of Banned Books Week from this last year. We're also joined by Hayden Cohen, an organizer with SEAT, as well as Angel Huang. They are all now in Texas, and they are fighting against HB 900, and they're trying to raise awareness around these efforts. And before the break, Hayden, you started talking to us about the very insidious, vague language that's in these kinds of bills that, really puts a chilling effect. It kind of casts a broad kind of cloud over vendors and librarians that really intimidate them before they're going to adopt the book. I mean, I'm a publisher as well at the Censored Press, and we already know how long it takes for books to be chosen by large districts and these kind of. It's already a bureaucratic affair, and now they're adding these layers of fear and concern over it that are literally going to be putting a chilling effect over the kinds of books that people have access to read. This is what you three are doing right now. On the front lines, fighting for the right to read, the freedom to read, and the right to be taught things that are going on. And you're also trying to protect the rights of young people. And Hayden, you mentioned before the break something very important, that the language in these the language in these bills is part of the parental rights movement. We're not saying parents don't have rights, but it's one thing for as a parent, I'm one. It's one thing to suggest that I'm okay with what my kid gets to do or read or whatever, perhaps. But that doesn't give a parent the right to restrict the access to titles and books and things for everybody else. And that's a key part of the problem. So Cameron Samuels, I wanted to bring you back in here because you were chomping at the bit to get back into the conversation before we had to take a break. So let's go to you, and then we'll do another round and hear from everybody a couple more times here. Cameron.
Sure thing. Yes, Hayden brought up a provision in the bill about parental rights, how the collection development policies in school libraries would require a recognition that parents are the primary stakeholders in their students' access to library materials. And this is one of the many bills that have been part of this parental rights movement this session. And I mean, this trend is happening across the country, but here in Texas, that has been such a huge focus of this legislative session. And when you look at the issues, public schools in Texas lack so much funding. The literacy rates of students, how students are excelling, especially after the pandemic, is so challenging. And book bans, among many other of these issues, are harming students by denying them not only the right to read, but to find a connection to their school libraries.
The right to representation, right? The right to representation, to right to read stories about their communities, in their voices. It's pretty extraordinary. And again, that chilling effect is very problematic. And another thing that, again, when you mentioned, I know it's a catchphrase nowadays, the parental rights, right? But Cameron, what about students' rights? What about civil rights, human rights? What about Article 19 in the UN Declaration of Human Rights on the right to receive and impart information without any interference? Right? I mean, there's so many issues here that are conveniently being ignored when we only focus on parental rights. But I think you see that as part of the strategy here in places like Texas. Is that right, Cameron?
Certainly. I mean, students are the primary stakeholders in our education, and all these policies being made in the legislature are about us, but are without us at the table. We don't have a valued voice in policymaking in the state, unfortunately. We are here, but as Angel said, they're not really listening to us. Those who are most affected as we walk through the school halls, as we sit in our classrooms every day, these policies are affecting us most directly, but they're ignoring us, they're neglecting us, and they're not listening to our call to action. We need their support. We need them to involve us in this policymaking, so they can make policies that will support us and not ultimately harm us.
Yeah, and Cameron, your organization you want a seat at the table. And
absolutely.
I'm talking to you from what looks like an office. You're in the legislative building now?
Yes, we're actually in one of our supportive partners, Representative John Rosenthal's office.
Well, thanks to John. Thanks to John for giving you literally a seat and a table to sit down and talk to us on the Project Censored show. We here at the Project Censored show are very interested in what you have to say and what you're doing. And we're honored to extend the platform and the microphone to you all today to come and talk to us about this. Angel Huang, let's bring you back in. A couple of other things that you want to bring up about your experience there and what's happening right now.
As we've been to the Capitol multiple times this past couple months, theirs has been so many interesting experiences with us. I would say that although we have been speaking to representatives almost every month, and we've been coming here on a weekly basis, it just seems like the people who needs to listen the most are least likely to want to open up and lend their ears. And it's very frustrating to have experiences where I have had friends of mine who would come here and try to have a civil conversation, telling them, hey, this is why it's important to us. Their office would literally reject them and pretend they don't exist. Like there is a literal experience where one of the groups that we've had come to speak and just do ledge visits, it was a bunch of high school students. They went I don't remember specifically which legislator, but they went to their office, and everyone in the office, basically all the staff, was talking to each other, mingling and chatting and just having fun, but not even talking about important things. It was just daily like chit chat. And when one of our students went up to them, was like, hey, we're here to talk about this cause, whatever, very politely, they laughed in their faces and then told them, this is not for, this is a private entity, whatever, you can't come in here, we're busy right now. And they just made them leave. And it was very disrespectful. And the fact that as the students were leaving, as in although it was embarrassing, that the students were still trying to be nice and being thank you, whatever, the staff literally laughed at their face and started like whispering to each other and be like, that was like, why are they here? Like talking to each other as if the students weren't listening. And it just really made an impact in how we felt in this building. It made us feel so uncomfortable, made us feel like we were not welcomed, and yet we're supposed to be here. Like this is our given right to be in this capital. Like it is our duty to actually be involved in this stuff. And the fact that they have rejected us and not listened to us, it's their job to listen. And the fact that they didn't give us the chance is so much disrespect. And I think a lot of these legislators have forgotten who they work for. In a way, like they're representing us. And the fact that they have decided not to is just, why are you here censoring us when you're supposed to be the voice for us?
And the censorship and disrespect go hand in hand, both in terms of legislatively and with the bans, but right down to the personal level of you exercising your civil rights. And you're literally doing what you're allegedly taught this in school, right? That you're supposed to be civically engaged and you're supposed to show up and go there, and then you're being laughed at by the people that are supposed to represent you. Angel, did you want to say something else?
Yes. So I wanted to expand on what you just said. So I think it's so interesting how a lot of the students we get involved today are not taught this at school, which is very sad that we are actually being rejected in school. And we were told like, hey, like this, you're too small to get involved. Like the government is something that you are unable to obtain because of the fact that, you don't have power. And the fact that we were taught that, and the reason why we're even here is because I learned from an outside organization. Like I was lucky and I was taught from an outside organization regarding this, and I got personally involved, not because I was taught this at school, but I taught myself this. And this is so upsetting that we are trying to expand that right now, and they're taking that away from us.
Hayden Cohen, you want to come in here? And it looks like you're seeing similar experiences here. You're actually not being taught to be engaged.
Yeah, a huge amount of civics curriculum, even education around voting is, I don't want to use the word being banned, but essentially being banned. They, especially from like the more conservative side, they definitely have been trying to ensure that students don't understand how to be involved. And that's kind of where C has been coming in and trying to educate, because I mean, I will say, like, so I graduated high school about a year ago. Not at any point did we get any help with registering to vote. I think we may have gone to mail-in form at some point. We definitely we weren't taught about the legislative session or how any of this works. We weren't taught about how we can get involved, how we could speak to representatives, what's needed to do that, what goes into like how a bill moves through the legislative session, what school board meetings are like and what they do. We weren't taught any of this. And I know some states have passed curriculum to expand on that and to ensure that students don't graduate without that crucial knowledge. Texas is just not one of them. And so I think,
Cameron, that's absolutely what you just described and Angel described, Cameron. And Cameron, this is criminal. Like it's deliberately trying to keep people in the dark, literally, and silent, and just doing what they're told. It's utterly authoritarian. Cameron Samuels, you mentioned that civics was banned with HB 3979. Did you want to say something about that?
Yes, House Bill 3979 has been creating a chilling effect in the past couple of years after it was passed in the last session. And just as Hayden was saying, and Angel, we are having to learn about civics on our own. We are lucky to be civic-minded, and we don't have that opportunity in schools when the legislature not only is turning us away at their offices in the Capitol, but they're turning us away in our education, prohibiting us from having classroom discussions about anything relating to race that would make someone feel uncomfortable being white. These provisions restricting discussion of current events are not preparing students to be active members of society.
We should be doing the opposite. We're supposed to be prepared. We're supposed to address these issues directly in the classroom. The classroom is supposed to be the sort of bastion of both free speech and a safe space where you can hear disagreements and you can hear differing ideas coming from different sides, so that you're able to be more civically engaged. You're able to have a meaningful existence in a society that alleges to uphold these kinds of civic principles. But unfortunately, the things that I'm hearing from you three today in Texas is that it's the opposite. It's like upside down, bizarro world where this is happening. Cameron.
Books, not bans. Like, more bans are not going to solve any issues. And we have to uplift the voices that have been silenced, that are not represented in the status quo that currently is so unjust that students are not only left out, but harmed. We have no place to go. I was lucky to have friends that could come together, and then a community that could come together when I first spoke at a school board meeting in Katy by myself on such a sensitive topic. It was just me there, and 3 months later, a room filled with supporters. And that was only possible because we spoke above the floodline of censorship. We were able to bring people together in a movement, a student-led and student-driven movement that uplifted us instead of putting us down.
Absolutely. Well, I can tell you, you'll always have a seat at this table on the Project Censored show. Cameron Samuels, Angel Huang, Hayden Cohen. Cameron, could you give a website or a place to follow the work, or some ways that people can keep abreast of what's happening, and of course what happened today, meaning because this show is going to air next week and things will already have happened. I know that you had shared with me an Instagram account that was Students Engaged TX to follow on Instagram. Anything else you want to share, Cameron, so people can follow or contact you all?
That's perfect. Yes. At Students Engaged TX on Instagram, we're reaching students where they are with actionable alerts and opportunities to engage in the legislature, to develop transferable skills and demonstrate youth visibility in policymaking.
So, Angel, anything you'd like to add here at the last moment?
Yes. So, adding on to what everyone has already said, I think an important point to make is about, like, let's first look into why it's so important that we need to have like books, and why, why are we trying to ban this? Of course, it comes back to critical thinking, and how basically, I think through this censorship, we are taking away the ability for students to critically think for ourselves. And this prevents us from using the power that we are supposed to use. And this again comes back to how, the First Amendment is about free speech, but you cannot fully have free speech if you cannot have free thought. And if you have no free thought, then you cannot do your duties. And so I think it's so important for us to have these questions and think about why we're having these, issues and what they're trying to aim to do.
Hayden Cohen, last words.
Of course, I echo everything Angel just said. And I think, in terms of student involvement, especially around these issues, students do need to know that you can absolutely pull up a seat, like get a foldable chair. And there is always a space for students. And while we talk a lot about some awful politicians and we're fighting against some awful bills, there are still good people out there. There are great politicians that are on our side. When we go testify, there are politicians that thank us for being young people at this mic, and those are people we want to work with, and people we want to ensure will fight for us on the Senate floor, on the House floor, on school boards. So get involved. Even if you're too young to vote, there are ways to get involved.
So, Hayden Cohen, thank you so much for that important message and the work that you're doing. Angel Huang, thank you so much for all you're doing. And of course, Cameron Samuels, Thank you for continuing to do the work that you're doing as the Youth Honorary Chair for the Banned Books Week Coalition. Again, on Instagram, Students Engaged TX. You can follow them there. You can also learn more at the American Library Association website, ala.org. The Office for Intellectual Freedom catalogs all of the attempts to restrict books and breaks it down for you there. You can also go to bannedbooksweek.org and also PEN America at pen.org. And I urge you to read The Banned in the USA, State Laws Supercharge Book Suppression in Schools. Arm yourself with the power that knowledge gives and be engaged. I want to thank you all, and you have my utmost and deepest respect. And again, anytime, come back, give us an update. And thank you all so much for what you're doing down in Texas today.